It's the Wiltfong Whip Around with Steve Wiltfong. Today is Thursday, May 16th. I am your host, Josh Newberg. Excited to be here because there are some big visits taking place this weekend. We're going to break it all down today. But first, guys, make sure you are subscribed to the best recruiting channel in all of the land. Hit subscribe for me, please, to the On3 Recruits channel. All right, the Wiltfong Whip Around. You can also listen to it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but we're going to get into it right now. Some of the top prospects in the country are taking visits this weekend. Let's start with the Georgia Bulldogs scavenger hunt. I'm not exactly sure what a scavenger hunt is when it takes place in Athens, but there are a lot of top prospects in town. We'll start with five-star offensive tackle David Sanders. Steve, you got Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, South Carolina, and Tennessee all vying for Sanders. His last visit to Athens was back in March. How important is it for him to check back in with the Dogs this weekend?
Well, Georgia's a program that at times in this process I thought has been the leader for David Sanders Jr. So getting him and his family back to campus, they were there in March, is big in a process that has certainly ebbed and flowed. They're definitely one of the major players in this recruitment because he has pointed towards the big-time games they play in, the development of big-time offensive tackles, the national championships, the relationship with Coach Kirby Smart, Coach Searles, and the staff. He's very excited about Georgia as he compares them to Ohio State, who's picked up some recent momentum. Tennessee, same thing. And then you got Clemson, the childhood dream school. Also, one of the leading contenders, Alabama, Nebraska, South Carolina, rounding out the list of schools that David Sanders and his family are keeping an eye on. And Josh, you want to know about this scavenger hunt? This is the Kirby Smart scavenger hunt at Georgia. So I believe these prospects are going to be split up into groups, given clues that are going to show them some of the things around the Georgia campus. They're going to learn more about the school, ultimately trying to find Kirby Smart first. So we're going to see selfies of these kids with Kirby Smart standing in the middle of these blue chippers on Saturday afternoon.
Oh, okay. So it's the recruit. Okay. I thought it was Kirby Smart hunting five stars. We'll see.
No. It's there's Big Cat Weekend at Auburn, the barbecue at the Big House at Michigan. This is the Kirby Smart scavenger hunt.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Now, Bo Jackson's also going to be in town. We talked about him with Rusty Mansell yesterday. Dogs got room for two backs, but they're in shape. They're in great shape for three backs, Bo Jackson being one of them, Usman Chroma and Todd Robinson as well. But Bo Jackson's taking his official visit this weekend. Do you think that this is maybe a chance for Georgia to close the door on this recruitment?
Well, we talked about those two in-state backs on the last Whip Around episode. I like the way it's setting up right now for Georgia with those two. But Bo Jackson, we created a little bit of a stir saying that we thought Georgia was at or near the top of the list for him as well. And I feel that way coming into the visit. Now, certainly Ohio State, Carlos Lachlan, and that opportunity in Columbus is exciting as Ohio State has a big need at the position, in Alabama in the middle of this recruitment as well. But he's been to Georgia several times. His mom has family in the area. He always has a fabulous time when he visits. Georgia's track record of running the football, being a hard-nosed football team is exciting. And this is an opportunity to get on campus in what's going to be a laid-back recruiting weekend. This isn't your standard go take a tour, meet with academics, and see the facilities. This is going to be a fun weekend trying to find Kirby Smart first, learning more about the school in the process.
Yeah, okay. Phillip Bell, Marcus Harris, two wide receivers that are taking official visits to UGA this weekend. Both out of the state of California. Which do you think UGA is in a better position for heading into the weekend?
I think this is one where Georgia's still trying to figure out their recruiting board job. I was recently introduced to Roback, and I couldn't be more excited. When I say impressed by the quality and comfort, I mean it. I literally can't take this stuff off since trying it on. For starters, the Roback polos are my favorite polos. They not only have fun designs for every occasion and season, but they fit perfectly and easily transition throughout the day. Roback's everyday shorts are the perfect pairing as well. They are so comfortable and have an elastic waistband and great fabric that is made to stretch. Finally, the Roback hoodie is by far my favorite piece of clothing I own. It is so comfortable. I wear this to start my day, end my day, and everything in between. Easy to be active in it, or just relax. The hoodie will fit whatever the day has in store. They have also released a ton of new products. Between their brand new Tailwind tees and bathing suits, Roback is ready for the warm weather. Roback has also been proudly leading the NIL charge, having signed partnerships with college stars Jalen Milroe, Cade Klubnik, among many others that are becoming the go-to brand for college athletes. Use the code STEVE on roback.com for a generous 20% off for all new customers through the end of this week. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. That's 20% off all performance polos, shorts, and more with the code STEVE. And they're bringing these guys in on official visits. And obviously that means that Georgia is one of the top 3 or 4 schools for both of these guys. I would not say they're number one for either at this point. The guys Georgia want to be number one for, in my opinion, are C.J. Wiley and Travis Smith Jr., the 2 coveted in-state pass catchers. C.J. Wiley out of Alpharetta Milton, Travis Smith out of Atlanta Westlake. Those are guys that I think that Georgia leads for Travis Smith, and they're trying to get into pole position for C.J. Wiley. They're certainly at or near the top of his list as they battle, the likes of Auburn, Alabama, LSU, and Florida State for Wiley. Auburn, Alabama, and Tennessee are the other contenders for Smith.
All right, Zaire Addison will be on campus. He's a 4-star offensive lineman out of the Tampa Bay area. He's highly coveted, and he has been taking visits everywhere. Last weekend, he was at UCLA. He's been out to Colorado. He's been everywhere. And it's hard to kind of understand his recruitment and who's truly in it because he's taken so many visits. Then you look at his recruiting prediction machine. It shows Florida State is leading. But when you talk Zaire Addison, who do you consider the top competition to land him?
Well, in the spring, I've liked where Florida State has stood for Addison. But to your point, and we've talked about this, he has got to be the mileage leader in this recruiting class. Him and his family, they should be able to use this mileage to get a trip to Europe in before he enrolls early at the school of his choice. Florida State's certainly one that I have a keen eye on. He's been to UCLA 5 times, Josh, including his official visit last weekend. Miami, Florida, now Georgia this weekend. He's been to Oregon. A lot of contenders for Mr. Addison here. But with Georgia, he's talked about them dominating the SEC, producing top NFL picks, says it's one of the most respected programs in the country, that he values that highly. And his uncle played for Coach Smart at Alabama, and his uncle speaks highly of Coach Smart. So I would imagine this Georgia visit's going to be a needle mover for Mr. Addison.
I'm sure it is. Lots of unofficial visitors. So we just covered the 4 official visitors. Lots and lots of unofficial visitors this weekend. It's a big one. Go check out all the names at Dogs HQ. Rusty Mansell and the boys do an incredible job of covering all things recruiting and football over there. I want to talk. We could talk Georgia probably for the next 45 minutes just on what's coming in this weekend, but I want to highlight a couple more names. Let's talk USC edge commitment Isaiah Gibson, who committed to the USC Trojans about 6 to 8 weeks ago now. But it continues, at least on my end. I feel that Georgia has really picked up in his recruitment. Who do you think's in a better spot right now for Gibson? UGA or the team that he's committed to in USC?
Georgia. I like where Georgia stands. I think he's going to visit Georgia way more times than he visits USC. And I think ultimately it's going to be hard for USC to keep Isaiah Gibson in the fold.
All right, what do you make of Trey McNutt's visit to Athens this weekend? Because Trey McNutt, one of the best players in the state of Ohio, has had Ohio State at the top for some time. Oregon's been a major player. USC is involved. But what do you make of Georgia in his recruitment?
Well, coming in, I like where Oregon, A&M, USC, Ohio State stand better for Trey McNutt. But anytime Georgia gets a chance to get an unofficial, which then could turn into an official down the road, particularly at the safety position where Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp have their roots at the coaching position at, and you see some of the great players that they've coached, Malachi Starks being the latest. This is an opportunity for Georgia to really soar here this weekend for Trey McNutt and then get back for an official visit, and we'll see what happens, because I think one of the most important things that Trey McNutt's looking for in a school is who's going to give him the best opportunity to pull the best player he can be out of him. and he's going to see that Georgia with Coach Smart, Coach Muschamp, and Coach Dante Williams and company have great resumes in that regard.
I'm reading the Wiltfong whip around this morning, like I always do, but something jumped off the page to me. You wrote, quote, "Don't be surprised if a couple more big flip targets show up." So, Steve, can you give the audience maybe even just a hint at who you're talking about?
Yeah, one of those names that I had in mind as I was writing the story and before I published the story, so then I added it to the published story, was Tarvos TJ Alford, who Chad Simmons was able to confirm the Vero Beach linebacker, Ohio State commit, would be at Georgia this weekend. Miami's another school that we've talked about that's going all in to try and flip TJ Alford from Ohio State, Florida trying to chip away, Florida State as well. But Georgia's going to get him on campus this weekend. Glenn Schumann and company have been working that one. I think that's going to be a tough road to get him to flip from Ohio State, but once you start getting him on campus, we'll see what happens. So Tarvos TJ Alford's one of those names. I actually now need to go back into that article and kind of downplay that portion of it because he was the big name that I was alluding to, kind of similar to David Sanders being the big name we were alluding to last week at this time when we were talking about an elite prospect showing up at Nebraska that wasn't public at that point.
All right. Well, Steve, you did a great job of kind of setting the table for what's going to take place in Athens this weekend. We'll be covering this Sunday, Monday, too. There's going to be a lot to talk about when it comes to Georgia recruiting next week. We'll cover it all. All right. Let's head down to Gainesville, where the Gators are getting a couple priority targets on campus. They're going to take a big swing at five-star DJ Pickett. He's from Zephyr Hills. It's only about 45 minutes south of Gainesville. He'll be in town this weekend. Now, it's a great time for UF to get him on campus because there's been a lot of buzz about Oregon and LSU this offseason. Steve, do you like where UF stands for Pickett heading into this visit?
Well, I don't think that they're the leader right now, but there was a time back when Florida was smashing Tennessee and Gainesville in a prime time where I thought that Florida was in pole position for DJ Pickett, and he was saying a lot of the right things to that coaching staff behind the scenes, but some things have changed since then. Corey Raymond is no longer his lead recruiter at Florida. He's his lead recruiter at LSU, and LSU is maybe number one in this. Miami and Oregon also right there with LSU. But the Pickett family's always liked Florida and being around Coach Billy Napier and company, and Will Harris has kind of taken this baton, and he's starting to hit his stride as the lead recruiter for DJ Pickett for Florida right now. The family likes Coach Harris. They're going to get up there this weekend, get to know him better on Friday, talk Gator football, and then Pickett's father, Damian, said, set up an official visit. Now, I would look at that August 31st season opener game against Miami, two of the top schools, Josh, Florida and Miami in this recruitment in the swamp. People are pointing to Miami, including us, as this program that's on the trajectory up. And then a lot of other media pointing towards Florida and this brutal schedule that they have this year. But I like the way Florida's recruited under Napier and company. I like some of the wins that they've had in the transfer portal. I think that culture has had to have a significant turnaround there, and I think they've taken some massive strides in that department, and that's going to be a fun football game to open the season, and that's a game that could dictate a lot of these recruitments, including DJ Pickett, when these programs have to start lacing it up and pop pads. Miami versus Florida is going to be one of the most pivotal recruiting games of the year, potentially, that season opener in August, and we'll see if DJ Pickett locks in as official for that weekend or if he does a midweek during the summer, but he's not going to decide till the fall. He wants to watch some of his top schools play, Florida and Miami being two of them.
All right, on 300 linebacker, IMG Academy 4-star Nathaniel Oswu Boateng will be at Florida as well this week, and he's the number 4 linebacker in the country. Now, Michigan, Notre Dame, Ohio State, USC, all involved. Do you think that this is another one of these IMG prospects that could end up landing in Gainesville?
Possibly. Now, Owusu Boateng, his family's been through this process before. His older brother won the Buckus Award at Notre Dame and now plays in the NFL. So recruiting their seasoned veterans here. He's been making a lot of rounds. He's been to USC recently. He's been to Michigan recently. He's been to Ohio State recently. All three of those programs now have official visits alongside Notre Dame. So we'll see if that's the outcome of this visit to Florida this weekend. Can the Gators get on the itinerary for an official visit?
Yeah, it feels like Gator recruiting starting to heat up. And if you remember last June, UF went on an absolute incredible run on the recruiting trail. Steve, do you feel like they're setting up to do the same this year?
It's a little bit different of a landscape this year for them, Josh, because I think they're in the right conversations. They're in the top 4, 5, 6, 7 for a lot of these blue chippers, but these guys want to see Florida play. So what I would say is that even if Florida loses some recruiting battles this summer, these kids rarely turn their phones off. And if Florida has the type of year that they are expecting to have this year, they're going to be able to come back around on some guys that maybe they're in the 2-3 hole for right now, that if they play well, could be in the 1 hole when it matters most come the early signing period.
All right, Gator fans, tap in with me. How do you feel about the month of June coming up? Are the Gators about to go on a run? Let me know. Comment section below. All right, let's head out to the Plains. Auburn, they are hosting a couple big-time official visitors. We'll start right here at the top with offensive tackle Andrew Babalola. It is his weekend to take an official visit to Auburn, and they are near the top of his list, I should say, because Michigan and Oklahoma are also heavily involved. What's Auburn trying to accomplish with this visit this weekend?
Well, they want to land this guy. I mean, Auburn's got a top 10. They had a top 10 class last year. They have a top 10 class this year, but point of attack is a really big point of emphasis for Coach Thornton and company this cycle. Andrew Babalola is as coveted a recruit as they have in the building, and that includes a guy like Julian Lewis, 5-star quarterback committed to USC, who we think Auburn is kind of trending for right now going into his official visits. So Andrew Babalola, very important prospect for them. He loves Auburn, loved getting around the players on the team last time he was on campus this spring, sees the trajectory of the program under Hugh Freeze and company. This is not just a throwaway official visit where I come and get my surf and turf and stay in a nice hotel and leave. Auburn is very much a major player for Andrew Babalola, one of a couple high-profile offensive linemen that are giving Auburn a keen look here as they try and build this program up into one that can compete for SEC championships year in and year out.
Yeah, let's talk about the next one on this list, Malachi Goodman, because he's in Big Ten country up there in New Jersey, big-time offensive tackle. He's back. He was in Auburn on a recent visit. Who's the biggest competition when it comes to Auburn and Goodman?
Exactly, Josh. Another quick visit back to Auburn shows how serious and how excited he is about the Tigers right now. He feels good. He likes Penn State a lot too. Alabama and Georgia are the SEC opponents, and then USC. USC, man, they're on a lot of short lists too, aren't they, Josh? That recruiting. That coaching staff has really done a fantastic job of getting the Trojans in the mix for a lot of these elite players. Them similar to Florida, I think that they got to go out and have a kind of a prove-it year on the field, which is a little funny to me with what everything Lincoln Riley has accomplished as a head football coach. But Auburn, certainly one of the top schools for Malachi Goodman, as well as they continue to recruit a top 10 class. Babalola, Goodman, two of the most coveted players that they have out there.
All right, running back Usman Cromie's the last official visitor we're going to hit on for this Auburn segment. Now, I thought that this was more of a Georgia-Florida State battle head-to-head, but now Auburn kind of throws a wrench into that by getting him on campus this weekend. Do you think when we come out of this weekend, we're going to be talking about Auburn being a real player for Croma?
Well, I'm not feeling Florida State as much as I was, and maybe that'll revert back at some point, potentially like DJ Pickett in Florida, as we talked about earlier in the show. But Georgia, I think that if Georgia, the way they're recruiting running backs, they're in on a lot of guys. If it sets up for them to push for Croma, I think he'll end up in Athens. But this is another opportunity for Auburn. He was there in March to make a move themselves. And so with Florida State fading some, in my opinion, maybe it's Auburn that leaps up into this lead group here and challenges Georgia and others for his signature.
All right, like we said, big weekend out on the Plains. Auburn fans, which of these names do you feel best about? Comment section below. Who do you want on your commit list? Let me know. All right, Let's move on, and we are going to go to Eugene. Another big weekend for Dan Lanning and the Ducks. And there's a bit of a Texas flavor to this weekend. We got a couple five-star visitors from the state of Texas out in Eugene. We'll start with wide receiver DeCorian Moore, who's committed to LSU, but there's a but there. He's been checking out Texas. He's been checking out Ohio State. And Oregon is absolutely a player as well. DeCorian Moore at Oregon this weekend. What do you make of it, Steve?
Yeah, 3 5-stars from Texas visiting Oregon this weekend are slated to. This is a visit that his mom told me was on the calendar. This has been on for a while, and we know that Oregon is one of the major challengers to LSU here with Junior Adams, Dan Lanning, the relationship, just the excitement around Oregon's program, one that's ripe to potentially win a national championship. I just think DeCorian likes the vibe out there in Eugene, likes the way Coach Lanning and company are players' coaches. They think it's a great environment for players and just another opportunity for him to get around it. But I still think that this recruitment's on the early laps, Josh. You got Ohio State, you got Texas, you got Oregon, you got LSU, you got upcoming official visits. So there's just another opportunity to remind DeCorian why you like Oregon as much as the others.
Yeah, I agree. I think this DeCorian Moore recruitment, you got to get him on campus when you can. But at the end of the day, I think if a flip is going to occur, it's going to be down the road. So you just got to keep tracking these visits, see where he goes, and make a run at the end. All right, talking about recruitments that are kind of shifting, Jonah Williams. Now, a lot of people were predicting him to Oklahoma. You recently dropped a recruiting prediction machine pick for Jonah Williams at Texas A&M. So now he visits Oregon. What does Oregon need to do on this trip?
Well, show Jonah Williams how he fits into their defense. You know, I think he loves the fit at Texas A&M of how they're going to utilize him, and then also just likes that it's Mike Elko specifically who's had some really talented safeties play under him, guys like Kyle Hamilton and Jesse Bates. So I think for Oregon, showing that scheme deal. This is also one of the best baseball players in the country, so kind of showing that as well. A&M's been able to do so. But he likes Oregon. This isn't his first time, his first rodeo with the Ducks. So they're certainly one of the favorites. He'll get back for an official visit as well. Got LSU in there, Ohio State's in there, Sooners. So a lot of contenders for Jonah Williams. I think Oregon is one of the bigger hurdles for A&M as they try and get this from the point of an RPM prediction to an actual commitment. So this is one to watch with him going out to Eugene.
Okay, athlete Michael Terry is the third five-star recruit from Texas that we're going to highlight in this segment. Now, he's been taking a lot of visits as well. He's recently at Nebraska. What teams do you think are really coming into focus for Michael Terry?
This is one of my favorite prospects in the class. Just great personality, cool kid. Nebraska just showed him a great official visit. Mm-hmm. They've really enjoyed their time around Texas A&M. Texas is in there. But they have really clicked with Coach Lanning personally. They like Coach Lanning. They like Oregon. So they're definitely one of the top 3 or 4 schools going into the official visit for Michael Terry, who could play a number of positions on the next level.
All right. Now, Oregon this week also made some waves in the quarterback room. They offered Keelan Russell, who's out of Duncanville, Texas. He's been committed to SMU for some time, but there was an interesting quote in your story, quote, Oregon's always been a dream school for me. What type of competition is Oregon going to introduce into this recruitment for Keelan Russell, who's already being recruited by the likes of Alabama and Florida and possibly Texas and, SMU trying to keep him on that commit list. But what do you think this Oregon offer means?
Well, there's been some people that have said that they think Oregon could be the potential biggest challenger to SMU for Keelan Russell. I certainly think Ole Miss is in the middle of that one as well. And then, like you said, future trips to Alabama and Florida. Oregon wants 2 quarterbacks this cycle. No one's recruited transfer portal quarterbacks better than Oregon when you go from Bo Nix to Dylan Gabriel to Dante Moore. But they'd like to build it up through the high school ranks. They have Austin Novosad there now. They have Achilles Smith committed, and they'd like to land another high school guy to push the room, and Keelan Russell fits that bill. Bear Bachmeyer is a guy that they've continued to recruit, committed to Stanford. KJ Lacey they've kept warm, committed to Texas out of Alabama. So certainly Keelan Russell, he's arguably the the best dual threat quarterback in the class next to a guy like Carter Smith, who's going to Michigan. So Oregon's done a good job in that state. They got a lot of coaches that have recruited that area, particularly offensive coordinator Will Stein, his track record being at UTSA before Oregon. So we'll see. But Keelan Russell's at SMU this weekend as they try and shut that thing down, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk SMU because they are hosting a huge weekend. Head coach Rhett Lashley and his staff will host 24 official visitors this weekend. As you said, Keelan Russell back on campus. It's a great sign for SMU. Do you think that there's any chance? Can they talk him into shutting this recruitment down?
Josh, this is the Pony Express weekend at SMU, not just any recruiting weekend. It's the Pony Express weekend because Rhett Lashley was a GA at Auburn back between 2009 and 2010 when the Big Cat weekend was visualized and then executed. He gave the credit to Coach Looper as kind of the visionary for that, but a lot of people were involved. Coach Malzahn, who's now doing one at UCF, was in the middle of that. Coach Chiswick was the head coach. But Keelan Russell, man, he's the jewel of this class. SMU has the number 25 ranked recruiting class in the country right now and on 3, Josh. This could be with the guys they're bringing in, the guys they're in on. SMU could have a top 20 class and certainly one of the best classes in the ACC. And if you're a program that can consistently do that and win the ACC or finish in the top 2, maybe even 3, depending on the year, you got a good chance to make the college football playoff. So that's what SMU's selling to these recruits when they come to campus. Rhett Lashley's going to tell guys like Keelan Russell and company, look, we had a top 20 offense last year, number 16 in the country, top 20 defense, number 12 in the country. Only one other program was top 20 in both categories a year ago, Josh, and it was Georgia. They won 11 games. They won their conference championship. And so it's easy to see why Keelan Russell, a local guy, state champion, led Duncanville to a state title. Again, maybe the best dual threat quarterback in the country. Why an offense like SMU's would be very exciting to him with the pace that they play, the amount of points that they score. So family's excited to get back there. I talked to Keelan's dad recently. They love that this program's moving to the ACC and all the big games that they could potentially play for. And then being part of the first couple recruiting classes that helps that trajectory and gets this program where it wants to be. There's a lot of financial backing and support of SMU football right now. They're moving into their new football facility in like 2 months. So guys like Keelan Russell are going to be able to put that hard hat on and go walk around that facility as part of the Pony Express weekend.
And you also got on 300 running back Michael Turner, who's already trending to SMU heading into the weekend. Do you think that this Michael Turner SMU relationship makes a lot of sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think that SMU leads there. I'm going to be joining Chad Simmons with an on-3 RPM pick today for Michael Turner. He's rushed for over 1,600 yards and 22 touchdowns this past year. I also think they lead for his teammate, receiver Xavier Johnson, who's an explosive playmaker. He's visiting this weekend, Josh. He's averaged 23 yards per catch over the last 2 seasons. You know, Coach Lashley's like, if we can keep the best players from Dallas, the Dallas Metroplex area, at SMU, this is the most offered Division I hotbed in the country. And if it's not number 1 each year, it's 2 or 3. So if SMU can land the majority of the top guys from the area, the Keelan Russells, the Michael Turners, the Xavier Johnsons of the world, then they're going to be very, very tough to beat on Saturdays in the ACC. And I like the way it's trending for Michael Turner.
Now, how about Lamont Rogers? I mean, we're talking about SMU taking big swings. We're getting caught up in the Pony Express hype, but Lamont Rogers, I mean, he might be that next level recruit. Is Lamont Rogers somebody that they can reel in?
Look, you miss all the shots you don't take. And so they're going to get him on camp. They're going to get him on campus this weekend. Same with Smith the Rogbo, a highly coveted edge rusher. There's a few other 4-stars coming. And it's going to be a hell of an environment. I mean, they're going to go out and really experience Dallas. This isn't going to just be, hey, let's tour SMU. Let's look at our intimate stadium. Let's talk about your fit in the offense. I mean, they've had those conversations. They're going to have those conversations again. This is going to be, hey, let's really get to know the coaching staff in a non-football type environment, touring Dallas, eating good Dallas food. And then they're going to, they're going to hear some speakers, some guys that have made some really nice lives for themselves, that have played sports at SMU, that didn't go the NFL route, but are doing pretty damn well for themselves. They're going to get a taste of all of that this weekend at SMU. Lamont Rogers will be one of them, soaking it all in. We'll see where it goes from here, but I do think that SMU's invested in all the right places to be in these blue chip battles.
Yeah, hey, they're showing it. A lot of teams would hope to have some of these recruits on campus this weekend, but they will be at SMU, so we'll continue to track that.
This
all right,
looks
Steve,
like a recruiting weekend. This looks like a recruiting weekend we're used to seeing at Texas and Texas A&M that SMU's having this weekend. And Rhett Lashley and company want to have more of those as they move into P4 football.
Yeah, and I expect that they will. All right, let's wrap up the Wiltfong Whip Around, and let's go all the way out west to UCLA. We talked about them on Monday, and this weekend they're bringing in 9 official visitors, one of them being quarterback Madden Iamaleava. Picks are rolling in on the recruiting prediction machine for Iamaleava to UCLA. Is this a weekend where they can close this out and knock down another big QB domino?
Well, they're going to try, Josh. This is one where the intel favors UCLA going into the visit for Madden Iamaleava. And I'm not sure who number 2 is right now going into the weekend. So we'll see what happens there. What I am sure of, Josh, we talked about it before the show. You didn't talk about UCLA for like the first year and a half of doing Inside Scoop and other programs with people, but there wasn't much to talk about. I mean, they've finished outside the top 60 typically in recruiting. They haven't had a top 25 class since 2018. That has a great chance to change this cycle with the recruiting weekend they had last weekend. They land Carson Cox, a 4-star running back this week. Now they could maybe land one of the best quarterbacks in the state in Madden Iamaleava, and they're in the mix for several other highly coveted recruits that are visiting this weekend from Rancho Cucamonga, Ed Rusher, Epi Sidonale, Gavin Crawford's an offensive lineman from Only Good Counsel, who they're at or near the top of the list for. Garrison Blanks, an in-state offensive tackle. I like where UCLA stands for. Dimitri Manning from Bellevue, Washington's one that UCLA he's thinking strongly about. And then tight end tight end from Graham Kapowson in Washington, Noah Flores is another one that UCLA leads for coming into the weekend. They got a few more 4-stars visiting this weekend. Hayden Lowe, an edge rusher from California, will be on campus. And then linebacker Zadrius Rainey Sale, who a lot of his recruitment's been centered around Florida State and Washington, but UCLA is certainly one that's on his short list as he starts to line up his visits. So it's been a long time since we've seen UCLA with this kind of momentum for this many high caliber high school football prospects, Josh. Now, Chip Kelly and company, they would do some good work in the portal and patch together a competitive football team. But this new UCLA staff with Deshaun Foster and company, they're going high school first. That's the foundation of the program that they want to build, and they're in on some really good ones. So that's it for this week's episode of the Wiltfong Whip Around. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We are on every Monday and Thursday, so please hit the like and subscribe button to get notifications for this show and many of the other great shows that you can watch on the On3 platform. Have a great weekend, and we'll be back on Monday.